I didn't want you to feel like I wasn't beating you to death with molarity, so I decided to keep going and continue to beat you. We're going to be talking about dilutions. Should be a pretty short video lecture here because it really is just you knowing how to plug things into an equation and solve for a variable. So the equation that we're going to be using here involves molarity, and this is called the M1V1 equals M2V2 expression. And the probably most important thing to know is what everything stands for. Obviously, these are two different molarities, right? And this is a volume in liters, right? And so that, remember, just about everything with molarity has to be in liters. So there is a resource guide, which hopefully will appear right here, or at least the very first question. And I'll just kind of show you how to use this this equation and also how to manipulate some variables just in case you're a little bit hazy on a little bit of the algebra. So the question that I chose, if I remember correctly, you're going to be adding 25 milliliters of water to a solution, right? And so if you think about it, what that's going to do to this concentration, it should go down, right? Because you have the same number of moles, but you're actually adding a whole bunch more liquid to that thing. So that's how we're going to use this thing. The ones always correspond to where you started, and the twos correspond to where you stop, right? And so this particular one says that we're going to add 25 mils of water to a 125 mil solution of, I don't even remember what it was, like sodium hydroxide or something like that. Yeah, sodium hydroxide that we knew started at a particular molarity. In this case, it's 0.15 molar. So I kind of, that's not really English, but you get the idea. The important things are going to be highlighted in red here, I guess. And so if you think about what you're doing, is your starting molarity is that, your starting total volume is that. Of course, we have to move our decimal point, like we always do, to turn that thing into liters. And really at that point, all we're going to do is we're going to take this value, plug it in, and we're going to take that value and plug it in right here. The thing you have to think about a little bit is, obviously we're going to be solving for molarity here, this being a dilution question. What are we going to plug in for V2? And if you think about what you're doing here is you're physically taking 25 mils of water and adding it to that 125 milliliters of solution. So you really have to add both of these together, right? And so this one really should be this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two values, and the thing that I'm going to plug in here is actually going to be that 0.15 liters, right? And so that's what I'll plug in right here. I'm going to stop the video and fill in the values, and then I'll show you how you can manipulate everything to solve for M2, just in case you don't remember that. So here we have all the values plugged in. I just left the units off to make things a little bit cleaner looking. What you'll notice is that you have to multiply these together, right? That's probably not too hard. But how do we get M2 alone? Well, one of the things that you'll recognize, hopefully from algebra class, is anytime you multiply two values together, the way that you get one of those variables alone is to do the opposite, which in this case is to divide. So we're going to take both sides and divide them by 0.15, and what we'll end up with for our new molarity is that. And that's as simple as dilution calculations are. As always, we always want to kind of sniff our value here to make sure that it makes sense, right? We started off with something that was 0.15 molar. We added essentially a rat's fart amount of water, so the concentration should have gone down a little bit, but certainly not a whole bunch. And in fact, we do notice that it did indeed go down. So that's how we do dilution calculations. I will say, as you kind of look through that resource guide, I'd encourage you to practice just a couple, because sometimes the words get a little bit confusing. Sometimes instead of adding, let's say, 25 milliliters, it'll give you like the total volume that you end with, right? And so you just have to be a little careful to recognize what volumes you're plugging in for that second volume. Other than that, pretty straightforward. Give a couple of them a try.